This is Oscar, and once more to Global Training. I have a very, very nice guest, person that is being a colleague. Eric Myers. Eric is a professor and lawyer, and he has been working in different areas, especially in the academic area. He's been a professor at Broward College and some also educational institutions in the U.S., as well as EAFIT in Medellin, where he has taught international law, business law, and also he's been an investor, an entrepreneur. Right now, he's a chief legal officer at Global Cultiva. Well, I think it's better that Eric does a little part too, and he can tell us about himself. So, Eric, welcome to this interview, and it's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oscar. I know we've done business together before, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, what can you tell us a little about yourself, something that I missed, and that you can tell us so people know who you are and the reason you are here today?
Well, a little bit about my background. I got a master's degree in international business administration. Then I decided to go for a doctor of laws. I've been a practicing attorney for 20 years, mainly a trial attorney. I'm the guy that goes into court to fight the battles when you can't work something out on the civil side. And in the meantime, I taught several years business law and government and many other things at Broward College, as well as Florida Atlantic University in Florida there. And then in Medellin, Colombia now, AFIT University asked me to teach international business and international law, which I did or have done for several years. Other than that, I do, they say, what are you? Well, attorney, which I'm still an active member of the bar, and I have my own law firm in Florida. I'm a professor. I teach classes. I also have individual students that I'm also continuing to do. I tutor and I teach them specific things when they need it. I had one of my former paralegals in Miami contact me recently. She's actually originally from Colombia, and she got back to me for something, and I'm now teaching her something specifically every week. So I do one-on-one, which I enjoy. And then the other thing is I'm an empresario. I'm a business person, invested here and running and developing corporations and companies here and opportunities here in Colombia, as well as around the world.
Okay, well, that's a very interesting background, and I think for a lot of the viewers of this video, sometimes people want to learn about that. Like, hey, where can I invest my money, or where do you see business opportunities and all that? And we're going to talk a little about that. So we're going to start with a few questions. I usually have a questionnaire for our guests, and one of the first questions that I have with people, which I like to ask, is, apart from your background, it's like with all this situation of the pandemic, many things changed for people in general, for businesses, for our relations with others. How this pandemic changed something about the way you do business, the way you contact with people, what is different now that wasn't like a year ago, and how do you see the pandemic as a challenge, but also as an opportunity?
Yeah, the challenge is before it was much more dependent on person to person, where you need to go and you need to be presencial, you be in person, live with I was talking today, I had a meeting with a big deal in Africa, actually, and developing, and before we were planning on going there, and now let's set up a Zoom meeting. So not only, and there's a whole thing to learn around being good at Zoom that I think is a new skill some people are still learning. And I mean, on one hand, it's a little bit of that's a little bit of how it's changing. How it's changing, of course, is before it's much, particularly outside of the United States, it's much more dependent on person to person, who you know, those personal relationships. The United States is important, but not near as much as it is in a place like Colombia or in many other countries. Now with the pandemic, what's changed is, well, maybe it's a little less than it used to be, or it's still important. You just got to contact them over the internet more. That's a little more challenging because, you usually get the close relationship when you one-on-one with the person in person. And now that's changing a little bit. But of course, the real opportunity is now you're not bound so much by where you are. You can talk to somebody all over the world. and
yes.
and I think that's I see that every day. So you need to, people need to think more globally now, because before you didn't have as much online. Certainly, in my practice of the law, it's changed very much. I still have international clients. Before, one of my limitations is the default position in the courts in Florida and almost all over the United States is for a hearing or a trial, you had to be there in person. So, and if you wanted to call in on something, you had to get a special order for the judge. You had to petition the judge and give a good reason why you couldn't be there in person. Well, now the default is the other way around. Everything now is going to be online, either Zoom or some other thing. Unless you really think there's some special reason you want it to be in person, then you have to petition the court to say it's going to be in person.
So now,
and we're going to be well, the thing that opens up for me is I can be anywhere in the world and do that. Whereas before I was tied to being near the court, or I had to be in person. And I used to practice law all over the United States, particularly Florida. And I sometimes was flying, all over the place to be at a hearing or be at a trial. And gee, it's a lot nicer not having to do that.
Okay. And also you are saving, no? You don't have to travel. That will be like a cost saving opportunity for you.
Saving a lot of money.
Exactly. I think one of the, I don't know in your business, but in my business, for example, before visiting customers, traveling to other cities, to other countries, looking for customers was a very time and in terms of money, it was a cost, for the company, for you. So do you think that this is like now, as you said, is changing and probably, and before, in my case, in our business, which is academic, that we both are in now, visiting customers in other places require you to travel and do some kind of protocol, go to the city, call the manager, do all that. Do you think that all this is helping the business?
The way it's changed, it has helped. One thing you've got to be, you need to do your research beforehand a little better. Before, you could kind of go, and even if you didn't know the culture or the customs or whatever, you can kind of learn it as you get there. Well, now you're going to be talking just over the internet, and you better know it beforehand. There are certainly differences between the U.S. and the Colombian culture that you need to be aware of. So, the opportunity is, of course, that information is out there online. If you don't know a culture. And then, so as soon as you talk to the person, which you're getting right into, you already know the culture. I think before you could probably wing it a little bit more, you could just kind of go along with it because you're going to go in person and learn it. Or now you need to be better prepared, I think. But again, it's certainly much more efficient from a business standpoint when you can talk to somebody in Africa and then in Europe and then in Colombia versus having to travel to Europe and then Colombia.
Totally.
It takes several weeks,
Yeah,
you can do it all in one day. That's very different now.
Okay. I have a question here about the personal, like your personal learning, your personal thing. I had a question here that says, which apps or programs or technologies have you learned to use during this period? Or if you were familiar, I mean, you've been like between the US and Colombia, Latin America, travel, you have some customers in different places. Maybe you were more in contact with technology, but were there any new things that you have to learn, or did you have to adapt to new things, or for you that transition wasn't that bad?
Yeah, well, it wasn't certainly, well, certainly everything online, like I said, Microsoft Teams, the Zoom, and there's several other services. Getting to know those and be good at them, absolutely. There are other applications. For one, which I don't know how much is affected by this, but like this other corporation I'm a partner in. We use Salesforce, which is a I've gotten to know that much better now.
Okay.
But there are things, those are metrics that, I don't know about how much I mean, those were coming anyway, I think. More. As far as other technologies, other than that, I don't see a lot. I guess the certain apps related to the virus and things, certainly I've gotten to know very well. And you've got to know what the restrictions are in each country. But otherwise, I mean, just the normal things. Of course, learning languages is a big one, and there are many apps out there, but there's nothing quite as good as talking to somebody who's a native speaker from that country. If some of your viewers here, if they don't do a lot of business in the United States, if they want to, realize the United States, most people only speak English. Which most other countries, particularly Europe and others, people speak 2, 3, 4 languages. And in the United States, number one, it's a really huge country. So a lot of people that I know have never even been outside of the United States. And
a lot
of them have no desire. I mean, going from Miami to Seattle, Washington is a very take you a long, long time to get from one to the other. That's a little different than, a smaller country like Colombia or something. Well, Colombia is maybe medium to small. So, I mean, that's one thing. It's a big country. The other is, of course, it's the #1 economy in the world. So people in there don't have a real reason to go. And English is becoming, or it is the international language. So it's more critical than the other. I get asked here in Colombia a lot of times, what's the one thing I can do? I say, well, you need to learn English if you want to do international language, international business. I say, you really need to have a good knowledge of English, and the earlier you start, the better you're going to be.
Yes, of course.
Because it really is the international language, and I know right now there are people looking to hire people that are bilingual. I mean, the first thing, they got to be able to speak English, for some sort of job that they would service something in the States. That certainly has been an opportunity, and it's even more so now. Somebody from Colombia or another country that they can get better wages than they could because they're working for an American firm. Here, American firm is still cheaper than what they would pay somebody there, but it's more here than they would. But you got to be able to speak English,
that's
and that's the limiting. That's #1, and then other stuff, So tell people, take English, it.
That leads me to the next question, and it is, what would you recommend? For example, let's say you have children or grandchildren. In Colombia, some people want their kids to start getting that skill, which is improve their language ability. As a professor, as an academic staff, how do you see that? For example, you taught at EFIT. How do you see the English level of university students for that in that respect?
Well, that's interesting. At the university level, what I saw in my students compared to my students back in the States, the English, the students had to speak, like I taught classes in resolution of international conflicts. I taught theory of negotiation at Universidad de AFE, but it was a prerequisite that the students had to speak English before they came into my class. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I taught only in English. As a matter of fact, the administration there asked me, please, I know you speak Spanish, but only speak English in your classroom. Okay. Because the students, even though they speak English, I use a lot of advanced terms and legal and international terms, and they need to have that because this is an international business program or international law. When they go around the world, they need to know English, really advanced, advanced English. So, what I saw in the students, actually, their level of speaking English was decent. Of the students was at AFE was actually, I was impressed that for the most part, most of them spoke good. The thing that was not good, and this is what perhaps they need to work on, is writing skills in English. I mean, I had, as part of the class, they had to do a research paper, and I was very disappointed in general with that. I told the administration, I said, I could spend the whole semester teaching how to write effectively, but that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to teach. They were supposed to have writing in English before my class. So, and I think that's something that, obviously speaking, but you need to be able to write effectively, because a lot of times people are going to be prejudiced against you if they see these obvious errors that I saw, and this person doesn't know what they're talking about, and you don't even get in the door. Okay. So the writing.
So the writing would be something like people, or in general, has to be the programs have to focus on.
I think they need to do a better job of that. The other thing, realize English versus Spanish. Now that I've learned both languages, my opinion on that is English. I mean, there's some things harder in English, some things harder in Spanish. In English, the thing that's harder is pronunciation. Yeah. Because there's not good rules. It's not really it's some phonetic, but it's not phonetic. The rules, but there's no, I say hay reglas, but no hay reglas. I mean, there are rules, but there's no rules. Because it's kind of all over the place. And you just kind of have to know it. And I know my students back in the United States, actually, they were born in the United States. They had a problem with that too, because that part is difficult. The thing that's more difficult in Spanish is all the verbs that change all the time, and the feminine and masculine words that drive me crazy. But as far as the pronunciation, it's easier in Spanish because it's phonetic. So I think it's when they're learning English, make sure they practice the pronunciation a lot. Okay.
And now there are a lot of tools online that you can use to improve. And one of the things that we do at our company at Global Training is providing a really good and a variety of languages, English program. We have a variety of language programs, and that's one thing that we do here, where we can help people to develop and improve their speaking skills.
Yes, I think, and particularly with the workforce, I know that y'all, we do that. Companies want to hire people some other country. Well, you got to have at least a basic or medium level of English or whatever. That's becoming increasingly important. So programs like yours is very much needed, particularly for, again, just not so much students, high school or college. Well, somebody that's already out in the workforce and they already know something, a profession, something, a nurse or doctor or something, but they need to be able to speak English now, at least basic English, to be able to work somewhere else. And that's very important.
Yeah, thank you. You answered before this, but as a compliment, you were talking about the workforce and the problems that people have in order to sometimes to access work and business opportunities. In Colombia, for example, you're a lawyer and you have contact because of your investments and the things that you do. What is the major downside for people, for example, you in the legal area, in the business area? Do you think that people in Colombia, if you let's have a like a measure from 1 to 10. How do you see the communicative level of business people and people in the in professional areas about that, about speaking, about being bilingual? Like, how do you see
Oh,
that in Colombia?
I think, well, from a scale of 1 to 10, I think Colombia would be 3 or 4. It's not, they're not very, I mean, one thing good or bad, and I told some friends back in the United States, one thing good about Medellin and Bogota too, I guess, yeah, is that the accent is easier in Spanish to be able to understand. And you have to speak Spanish here every day. Whereas some places you go, everybody speaks English, and you don't use it, because as soon as they see somebody like me, they immediately change to English, and then, which is easier, but I never learned any more Spanish. So, but I mean, that shows that overall, there's not a lot of people that speak English, and certainly not Medellin, and I think in general in Colombia, it's improving a little bit day by day, but it's still low to
Yeah.
medium in Colombia, low the bilingual, bilingual, and that's the other thing. Once in a while, like I had one student that was learning, I think it was Japanese. I said, that's fine, but when are you ever, this is a Colombian, did not speak English, was learning Japanese, so Spanish and Japanese. I said, well, that's fine, but when are you ever going to use that? I mean, I'll learn English later on. I said, no, you first need to learn English, then learn. It's fine. More languages is always better, but you need to learn that first, English, and then learn other language, because English you're going to use a lot more. It was the same thing for me growing up in where I was born. Everybody spoke English. Nobody spoke any other languages. And I had a choice when I was in university there, and I took Spanish, and I'm glad I did, because I've used it. I wouldn't use, these other languages, like in French even, might use it once in a while, but not, I used to speak basic German, but I haven't used that in 20 years. So I've forgotten it all, but Spanish, yeah, I use all the time. And anyway, very useful.
Yeah, that's an important point, and that's what we do here. Like we help people, companies. We have had in previous for people who are following the series of interviews. We interviewed in our first interview was Laura Mingo from Spain, that person at Manpower Spain, and she also explained the importance of learning. For those who haven't seen this interview, you can click on the right and you will see a card showing you those interviews that we have. Laura, we have Claudia, we have Iker from Spain too, and they give us like their perspective about how and what they do in order to improve their abilities, and what they recommend, which is my last question to close this interview. You have a lot of roles. You are a teacher, a professor, an investor, entrepreneur, and you are a Selección Colombia fan, as I can see in your T-shirt. What
was special for today.
Yeah, that's cool. Eric, as a professional, what would be the way you motivate people, that you inspire people? What do you want people to learn? Like they take something home from this interview, that you tell them, hey guys, let's do this, because this will really help you to get better opportunities.
Well, number one, realize that we live in the best time in the history of the world, of mankind, when all these things are possible. You can come from a little place in Colombia, maybe a poor, but you've got an internet, you've got a computer, or you've got an opportunity, you can reach the world. And it's becoming more so every day. And what do you need to do that? Of course, like I said, learn English. You need to realize the things that are needed. And for instance, here, call centers. That's the thing that sprung up here. But there are other things with that, and there are also all kinds of manufacturing that could be done here a lot cheaper than the States. And So the point is that what I see in the students, I asked them the first day of class that, hey, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. I thought, I don't know, maybe I wanted to go to do this, but I don't know if that's possible. I'm like, yes, it's all possible. If you have sustained focus on a goal, you'll get it. And the way through international education, learn something useful that is needed, learn English, and keep at it. Even if you have one job and then you're working on that part-time, and become an expert on things on the internet, and like Zoom, like this, and other things, and and anything's possible.
Okay, great. For those who haven't seen the interview, we had an interview with Claudia Oliveros, which is the general manager at A4SI, which is like a transnational employment agency that has all the legal requirements to hire people and place them in other countries. And we can see that in this link. And she explained something like you said, people need to be bilingual. They made I don't know if you saw the interview, they made A4SI made a study, and they performed a study last year, and they found amazingly that, as you mentioned before, there was the calculation is that 2 or 3% of the population in Colombia are bilingual, which is a very low number, especially because they require nurses, they require doctors, they require specialized people, and also non-specialized jobs. And they were saying, oh, well, we need people, we need workforce, but where do we get this bilingual workforce? So that's why it's important that we support these kind of programs, and we say, okay, we can offer you programs that can help you achieve those goals. And that's why we are interviewing people that can show what is the reality. In your case, you travel to a lot of places around the world, not now because of the pandemic, because you have been in the UAE and in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and you are very aware about what is going on when you go to these places. So Eric, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. I'm very happy that you share your ideas with us, and I hope to see you in future editions that we have that you can talk about other interesting topics.
Sounds great. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, Oscar.
Okay, we'll be talking. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.